Guy Whidden was just 20 when he jumped into Nazi-occupied France with the 101st Airborne on D-Day. He trained for a year in England, waiting, preparing, and when the time came, he leapt from a plane at just 300 feet into chaos. He landed alone, no unit, no orders, nearly shot by his own men. He saw friends killed by mortars, hid in burnt-out villages, limped through battlefields, and one night, under the cover of darkness, he smoked a cigarette with a stranger who turned out to be a German soldier. This is the true story of survival, kindness in chaos, and the strange, unforgettable moments war never teaches you to expect. It all started with a train ride. Guy Whidden had just graduated high school in 1942. He'd signed up to become a pilot. Flight school at Randolph Field was the plan. His father even shook the recruiter's hand. But when the train pulled out at the station, it was headed south, not west.
I said to the sergeant, "Aren't we supposed to be going to Randolph?" The sergeant said, "Forget it. You'll probably end up in the infantry."
Just like that, Guy's dreams of flying vanished. Instead, he was assigned to the Army's topographical engineers, drawing maps, not battle lines. Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Guy, a northerner, found himself surrounded by Southern infantrymen who didn't think much of Yankees.
They didn't like me. I had to fight more than a few of them early on.
Wrestling helped him win them over, but his baseball won their respect. He pitched, he hit, he helped the team win games, and after a while the fighting stopped. That was how Guy earned his place amongst the Southerners, who soon became his brothers. As the topographical engineering training went on, it was clear that drawing maps was smart and safe work. But Guy couldn't shake the feeling that he was wasting his chance to do something real.
Map making was fine, but I didn't come all this way to draw lines on paper.
He wanted something more. He wanted action. And he knew war wouldn't wait for anyone. So when someone mentioned the Airborne, Paratroopers who jumped behind enemy lines, Guy didn't hesitate. He signed up that day, swapping his pencil for a parachute. He was sent to Fort Benning, Georgia, the crucible of the US Airborne, where the Army turned rookies into jumpers. The punishment during training was brutal. Push-ups, shouted insults, men dropping out every day. Guy didn't drop. He didn't complain. He excelled. When it came time for jump week, he was confident. Until two massive college football players were lined up ahead of him at the plane door.
They were guys I looked up to, big, tough, and then they turned around and said, "Whidden, why don't you go first?"
He didn't expect it, but he didn't back down. From that moment on, the sky was his, and the war was calling. June 5th, 1944. The mission was Operation Neptune, the assault phase of Operation Overlord, the largest invasion the world had ever seen. Their job: jump behind enemy lines in Normandy, knock out German defences, and clear the way for the Allied forces hitting the beach at dawn. Guy's target was Omaha Beach from the back. He and the 101st Airborne would land behind German artillery and silence it before the first boats hit the shore. They flew low over the English Channel, hugging the waves to avoid German radar. Then, just past the Jersey Islands, the planes rose to 1,500 meters as they neared the French coast.
They gave us tablets for air sickness, but they didn't help much. Guys were puking everywhere.
He clutched his gear, trying not to breathe. The plane reeked of vomit and smoke. His plane was the third to fly into Normandy. The sky ahead was already flashing. Tracer fire, flak, artillery lighting up the night sky like the 4th of July. And somewhere out there, in all that chaos, was the jump zone. June 6th, 1944, 1 a.m. The green light blinked on. Guy jumped from just 300 feet, and with the parachute opening at 100 feet, it barely had time to deploy.
Lowest jump I ever made. You don't float, you drop.
Below him, Normandy looked like the 4th of July, only deadly. Tracer rounds carved red lines through the sky. Flares lit up descending paratroopers, making them easy targets. German machine guns raked the air. The horizon glowed with burning farmhouses and flak bursts. Then, something heavy crashed into him as he landed. A supply bundle. He blacked out. When he came to, it was pitch dark. He was alone, his head pounding, and no idea where he was. And his clicker, the tiny metal cricket they used to signal friendly, was gone. Then, footsteps. A figure emerged in the distance, using a clicker which Guy didn't have. Soldiers were told to shoot on sight if they didn't receive the signal back. Guy froze, then started shouting into the dark.
I'm Guy Whidden, Cheltenham High School, wrestling team. My girlfriend has red hair.
It was frantic, desperate. The silhouette raised a rifle, finger on the trigger. Guy thought he was a German, and the pause felt eternal. Then, slowly, the rifle lowered. A paratrooper from the 82nd Airborne stepped forward. He looked Guy up and down and then let out a breath.
You're lucky I didn't shoot you.
They weren't even supposed to be going the same way. The 82nd Airborne were headed towards St. Mary Glees, while Guy was supposed to hit artillery near Omaha Beach from behind, clearing the way for the morning landings. But it was dark. With everything falling apart, direction didn't matter. Guy nodded, said nothing, and followed the soldier into the smoke. Later that night, Guy and a few other scattered paratroopers, most from the 101st Airborne and some from the 82nd, huddled together behind a hedgerow near St. Mary Glees. They were exhausted, cold, still separated from their original units. They pulled out their shelter halves, the half tents each man carried, and pitched them like makeshift lean toss. It wasn't much, but it was something. A place to breathe, to light a cigarette without giving away their position. They spoke little, just the sound of boots, matches, and war in the distance. Then, out of nowhere, another figure landed nearby. He approached quietly, sat beside them without a word, lit a cigarette, took a few puffs. They watched him closely, and after a few minutes he stood, nodded, and walked off into the dark. It wasn't until later, much later, that someone whispered what they were all thinking.
That guy wasn't one of ours.
He was a German paratrooper, but no one moved. No one raised a weapon. In that moment, surrounded by smoke, fear and fire, not one single shot was fired, just silence.
We were all killers that night, but somehow, not in that moment, not then.
Operation Overlord, D-Day, had been a success. The beachheads held, and the Allies were pushing inland. For Guy Whidden, it meant one thing: on to the next mission. Operation Market Garden. The objective: drop into the Netherlands, seize bridges, outflank the Germans, and end the war by Christmas. Guy's unit was called in. This time, he was the assistant machine gunner. His comrade was in charge of the M1919 Browning machine gun, while Guy handled the ammunition and helped with the gun's operation. Guy jumped and got snagged in a tree near Arnhem, dangling, alone, again. In the distance, the growl of German tanks. Then, two dark shapes approached on bicycles.
They looked like shadows. One of them pulled a knife. I thought, this is it.
Instead, the man reached up and cut him loose. No threats, no commands, just a quiet good luck. Then they vanished. Dutch resistance, brave, silent, gone before he could thank them. Later, under heavy mortar fire, Guy sprinted down a road. He dove into a ditch, charged through a wheat field, and slammed into a German soldier. Both hit the dirt. Guy's heavy gun landed on top of him, his arms pinned beneath him. Then, cold steel pressed against his forehead, a German Luger.
I couldn't move, just stared at him. I thought, okay, this is how it ends.
But it didn't. The German paused, looked him over, and then, slowly, handed over his pistol to surrender. He helped Guy to his feet, and they walked together, side by side toward American lines. Suddenly, Guy's buddies raised their rifles. "Behind you," they yelled.
I said, yeah, he's with me now.
Just like that, the enemy became a prisoner, and Guy kept moving forward. A few days after the Luger encounter, hell broke loose. 2 hours of straight mortar fire pounded their position. Dirt, shrapnel and screams, men dropping all around. Guy was hit by a mortar, his foot torn open and the bone showing. But there was no time to stop, no medics nearby. He crawled, limped and kept going. Later, a group of NCOs and officers were arguing near a wheat field. They suspected Germans hiding inside, but no one wanted to go check. Guy, limping and muddy, overheard the conversation. The officers turned. They handed him a stick, yellow cloth tied to the end, a makeshift flag. He hobbled into the waist-high wheat field alone. About 150 meters in, a shape rose from the stalks. A German officer, then another, then more. Dozens popped up, like whack-a-moles, and walked with Guy toward the American lines. Weapons dropped. Not one shot fired. A limping private with a stick had just captured a small army and walked back through the wheat field without a word. No medals, no press, just another day.
You show up at the right time with a limp and a flag, and suddenly you're a diplomat.
At a crowded field hospital, Guy finally got his leg examined. Shrapnel had torn through it. It was infected, swollen and discoloured. A medic took one look and slapped a tag on his thigh. Amputation.
They were short-staffed, overwhelmed. Cutting it off was easier than saving it.
Doctors had been removing legs all day, sometimes when they didn't have to. It was faster, safer and cleaner. But Guy wasn't ready to give up.
I told him, "This is my leg, you're not cutting it off."
One officer, maybe impressed, maybe just curious, took the tag off, and instead of reaching for the saw, he reached for disinfectant. Guy kept his leg and walked out on it, because even in war, there are victories no one sees.
I figured I came in with 2. I'd like to leave with 2.
Guy Whidden came home, became a teacher, a coach, a quiet pillar in his community. He rarely spoke of heroics, but once, when asked what he was most proud of, he said,
The war made me more aggressive in life. I always felt a little inadequate before. My father and grandfather told me never to cry. I didn't, not until my wife was dying. But I've learned crying is good. It heals.
The war gave him scars, but also strength. Not just to survive, but to feel.